Hello and welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Miss Kinsella and I am a second grade teacher at Lloyd Elementary School, and today we are going to be continuing to read Mouse and the Motorcycle, and we are going to be reading chapter 11 today. And as always, let's go over some interesting words that I found in the book when I read. We don't have as many as there are usually because I think we're kind of starting to learn more words. Okay. The first word, we've already had this word in the past, it's pilfer. Okay, so that means to steal. And it is a verb, meaning that it shows action. You have to do something to steal something, to pilfer. You have to steal. It's a verb. You're taking something. The next one is quavered. And that is also a verb. It means to shake, as if, you're nervous about something. The next one is vast, and that is an adjective. And if something is vast, it means it is a great wide open space. There's lots of room and it is big. And the last one is steadfast, and that is an adjective. And that means that you are very strong to your beliefs. You are very firm. Nobody is going to tell you no. You won't take no for an answer. You are very steadfast in what you think and what you believe. Okay, so we're going to read chapter 11, and then after we're done, we'll go over some of the questions that you're going to be answering in your packet. Okay, I hope you guys are enjoying this story as much as I am. And we can see in chapter 11, Ralph is on a mission. He is really trying to find his buddy Keith an aspirin because he is not feeling well and he has a fever. And I don't know if you all know what an aspirin is, but that is something that maybe your parents have given you. Maybe you take it more in a liquid form. But Ralph is looking for an aspirin tablet, which is like a little pill for Keith to take because he has a fever, meaning that he's very hot. Chapter 11 is called The Search. I have to go out into the hotel, Ralph informed his relatives. I've got to help the boy. Oh no, not out into the hotel, cried Ralph's mother. Not while the housekeeper is looking for mice. If you're seen, we'll all be in danger. I'll be back before dawn, said Ralph, staunchly, which means he's a very committed person. I must go. Don't try to stop me. See here, my boy. Aren't you being a bit dramatic? Asked Uncle Lester. Whatever do you have to go out into the hotel room for? To pilfer a pill, said Ralph. So he's saying to steal a pill. An aspirin tablet. His answer was dramatic enough for Uncle Lester. His entire family stared at him in disbelief. So they stared at him in disbelief, meaning that they did not believe him, because dis at the beginning of a word means not. So to disbelieve someone would be not to believe them. So Ralph's entire family stared at him in disbelief. Not an aspirin! Not after his own father had been poisoned by one of the dread tablets. An aspirin? Ralph's mother gasped. No, Ralph, not that! Anything but that! It's the only way, Ralph stood tall and brave. The boy has a fever, and he needs an aspirin. I'm going to find him one. Oh, Ralph. His mother hid her face in her paws. But Ralph quavered, Aunt Sissy, remember your father. You can't carry an aspirin in your cheek pouches. It would poison you. How could you get one here? I'll find a way. Ralph was outwardly steadfast in his determination. Meaning he was not going to be persuaded by his family not to go looking for the aspirin tablet. He was very steadfast. But inside he wondered how he would manage to get an aspirin into room 215. If he did find one, roll it, perhaps, Ralph said. Ralph, stay here, pleaded his mother. You're too young. Let your Uncle Lester go. Well, now, let's talk this over, said Uncle Lester. I'm not too young, and I haven't a moment to lose. Ralph, who was really frightened by what he was about to do, also enjoyed the drama of the moment. Goodbye, I shall return before dawn. Dawn is before the sun comes up, right when the sun is starting to come up. Ralph, promise me you'll be careful, pleaded his mother. Promise me you won't climb into any suitcases like your Aunt Adrian. Ralph's Aunt Adrian, who liked nice things, had climbed into a suitcase to examine a nylon stocking. Someone had closed the suitcase, and Aunt Adrian had never been seen again. It was hoped she had been carried away to a life of luxury. Promise me, Ralph, cried his mother. But her son was already on his way out the knothole. Ralph scurried across the carpet of room 215, flattened himself, and squeezed under the door. Once out in the hall, his courage ebbed. The aspirin tablet seemed a very small thing to find in a vast place. Again, vast. So he's saying that the aspirin tablet is very hard to find in such a large hotel. He has a lot of searching to do. It would be much easier to find the motorcycle. No, thought Ralph, I must not even think about the motorcycle. Ralph began to feel pretty small himself, much smaller than he had felt during his show of bravery back in the mouse nest. Down in the lobby, a clock struck 1. There was not a moment to lose. He ran to the next room, squeezed under the door, and searched under the beds and the dresser while the 2 guests slept soundly. All he found was a bobby pin. A bobby pin is a little hairbreadth that you use for your hair. He skipped room 211 because his enemy, the little terrier, was still there, and he ran on to room 209. A hurried search, frightened because of the loud and uneven snores that came from one of the beds, revealed nothing but a few pretzel crumbs, which Ralph did not have time to eat. On and on ran Ralph down the hall, under the doors, around the beds and the dressers. There was not a single aspirin tablet to be found. In one of the rooms, he did not see a penny. In one of the rooms, he did see a penny that had rolled under a luggage rack and remembered his mother's wish to leave a tip for room service. But tonight, he had no time for pennies. He must press on and find an aspirin. A small doubt began to creep into Ralph's thoughts as he ran down the hall to the last room on the 2nd floor. Maybe there was no aspirin. Maybe he was risking his life and the lives of his family for nothing. But Ralph pushed the thought aside. He would not let himself become discouraged. So discouraged is another word that has dis at the beginning of it. So discouraged would mean not to have courage. So Ralph is feeling very discouraged. If there was no aspirin on the 2nd floor, there had to be one someplace on the ground floor. Tonight he was willing to brave the stairs to find it. He flattened himself and squeezed under the last door on the 2nd floor. There was nothing under either of the beds but the things Keith called dust mice. There was no sound but the rattle of the windows in the wind. Ralph started across the carpet towards the dresser when suddenly a light from the bedside table blinded him. He stopped, rooted to the carpet by fear. Even though it was not likely that anyone was going to cut off his tail with a carving knife, he heard someone slip out of bed and utter a sound halfway between a squeal and a scream. Before Ralph knew what was happening, an ordinary drinking glass had been clapped down over him, and there he stood in a glass, trapped. By then his eyes were adjusted to the light, and he found himself facing a pair of bare feet. Looking up, he saw that the feet belonged to a young woman in a pink nightgown. And they have a little picture of Ralph as he is trapped inside the drinking glass. "Mary Lou, wake up," she whispered to the young woman in the other bed. "Look what I've caught." "Huh?" said Mary Lou, blinking and raising up one eyebrow. Her hair was done up in pink rollers. "Betty, are you out of your mind? It must be past 1 o'clock in the morning." The night was slipping by much too quickly for a trapped mouse. He was terrified, and he was desperate. No one in his family had ever been trapped under a drinking glass before. Worst of all, he was failing Keith and endangering his family. "Wake up, Mary Lou, and look," insisted Betty. "I was getting up to stop the rattle in the window, and I caught a mouse." The news roused Mary Lou from bed, and the two young women knelt down on the carpet to look at Ralph, who promptly turned his back. He did not care to be stared at such misery. But it was no use. The woman moved around to the other side of the glass. "Isn't he darling?" said Betty. Just look at his little cunning paws." Mary Lou leaned closer for a better look. "And his little ears, aren't they sweet?" Betty was delighted. It was disgusting. It was bad enough to be trapped and stared at, but to have this pair carrying on in such a gushy fashion was almost more than Ralph could stomach. Cunning little paws indeed. They were strong paws for grasping the handle grips of a motorcycle. "Oh, Betty, do you suppose we could take him back to Wichita with us?" asked Mary Lou. "My 3rd grade class would love him." "So would my kindergarten," agreed Betty. "We could keep him in a cage on the ledge, and all the children could bring him food from home. It would be such a good experience for them to have a pet in the classroom." "Well," thought Ralph grimly, "I always wanted to travel." A cage in a kindergarten in Wichita, however, was not exactly the destination he had in mind. The minutes were slipping by dangerously fast. He had to do something. "Look," he shouted through the glass in desperation. "Let me go, please, let me go! There's something terribly important I've got to do." "He squeaked," marveled Betty. "He's adorable," squealed Mary Lou. It was no use. Young women could not speak his language. Ralph was in despair. So if you're feeling in despair, that means that you're not feeling very hopeful. He's starting to feel a little like it might not work out. He thought of Keith tossing feverishly in his bed and of his family huddled in the mouse hole waiting for his safe return. "But I don't see how we could take him back to Wichita," said Betty sensibly. "We're driving to San Francisco and then to Disneyland before we start back. How could we carry him thousands of miles?" The two teachers looked thoughtfully at Ralph, who knew his fate depended on their decision. Was he to be carried to Disneyland and eventually to a ledge in a kindergarten room in Wichita? Wichita is a city that is in Kansas. Or would they let him go? A third possibility crossed Ralph's mind. Perhaps they would leave him under the glass for the housekeeper to see. He hoped not. He did not think he could last that long. Already inside of the glass was beginning to feel warm and airless. "I suppose we really shouldn't turn him loose in the hotel," said Mary Lou. "Mice are pests, even if they are cute." The teacher did not only destroy Ralph's hopes, she hurt his feelings as well. And she hurt his feelings because she called him a pest. Calling him a pest when he was on an errand of mercy. From the mouse point of view, the teachers were the pests. "I know," exclaimed Betty suddenly, causing Ralph to look over his shoulder for a clue to what it was that she knew. I know how we can get rid of him without hurting him. The young teacher reached over to the bedside table, where she picked up a postcard. She slid it under the glass and under Ralph's feet so that he was now standing on a postcard. He noticed the picture was of a giant redwood tree, the same postcard all the travelers bought when they came to California. Now what are you going to do? Asked Mary Lou. Watch. Betty carefully lifted the postcard, Ralph and the glass, and walked across the room. Even though he knew it was useless, Ralph scrabbled around in his tiny prison. He was afraid she was taking him toward the wash basin. The wash basin is another word for sink. He had heard of mice being drowned by people who did not like traps. The teacher walked not to the wash basin, but to the open window. She held Ralph across the sill, removed the postcard from the glass, and gave it a little jerk that shook Ralph off into the vines that grew up the side of the building. There, she said, and closed the window, leaving Ralph clinging to a vine high above the ground. And that is the end of chapter 11. So we are left with a very vivid image in our mind. We are able to really kind of make a movie in our mind about what is happening by using the words that the author is using to write this book. And Ralph has now been thrown out of a window and he is hanging on for dear life to some kind of branch. So we can really picture that in our minds. We can picture a mouse hanging by his little paws to a branch in a tree. Again, you can try to make some predictions about what you think is going to happen for chapter 12. What do you think Ralph is going to do? Do you think he's going to be able to get down? And is he going to be able to get back in the hotel? He's facing a lot of challenges right now and a lot of problems. He has a lot of problems on his hands. He's now got to get down from the vine. He's got to get back in the hotel, and he still has to find an aspirin for Keith. So we'll see how he solves these problems in the next chapters. But let's go over a few of the questions that you have to answer for chapter 11. The first question that you have is, where was Ralph going to search for the aspirin? And in the story, it said that he was going to be searching in different hotel rooms for the aspirin. He was going to be going into each one. How did he plan to get the aspirin there to Keith? He wasn't really quite sure, actually, how he was going to get the aspirin to Keith. He thought that he might roll it. And that is R-O-L-L, roll it. The next question is, how did his family feel about him going to search for the aspirin tablet? His family was very worried because his dad had died. He had been poisoned by trying to carry an aspirin tablet in his cheek pouch. So his family was very worried and they did not want him to go. Why did he skip past room 211? So he skipped past room 211 and he said that was where his enemy lived. And he was referring to the little dog, the terrier, that lived in that room. So he skipped that room because he knew that the terrier would probably sense him and start barking. The next question is, who caught Ralph and how? So the teachers caught Ralph, and they caught him by trapping him in a drinking glass. The next question is, how did the teachers say, or what did the teachers say that hurt Ralph's feelings? They said that even though he was cute, he was still a pest. So the fact that they called him a pest hurt his feelings. And the last question is, where did they take him? They took him to the window, and they gave him a little jerk, and they threw him out. All right, so that is the end of our YouTube episode for today. And it was really nice spending this time with you guys. Again, I miss you very much. It's so important for you to somehow find a way to watch these YouTube videos and for you to be reading the book and following along and trying to learn new words and practice new words. And always, always use our reading strategies when you are reading. Make predictions. Look for the problem. Look for how it's solved. Look for the setting. Look at the characters. Are any characters changing throughout the story? How are the characters handling some of the challenges? Like, how is Ralph going to handle this challenge of being outside the hotel room in a vine? Okay, so that is all I have for today. Have a very good day, and I will see you again soon. Bye.